guys, Aaron Dorr here with the American Firearms Association. As you guys know, we love breaking down real-life uses of the Second Amendment in the hands of armed citizens or police officers as they stop violent criminals in their tracks. And recently, one of the most sensational videos we ever covered took place in Middletown, Connecticut. Guys, the video was so incredible, I had to come out here myself and see the location of this shooting for myself, where Winston Tate, a violent psycho who should be in prison, attacked an officer who was by herself and just about killed her. She was saved only because she had access to a firearm. Guys, you're not going to believe the video. Check it out and give us your comments in the comments section. What would you do if you were in her situation? Hey guys, Aaron Dorr here with the American Firearms Association. As you guys know, AFA likes to highlight successful uses of the Second Amendment for our members. We can never forget, after all, why we have the Second Amendment. It's not about deer hunting. First is keeping tyrannical government in check, and then is stopping violent criminals like this guy who are bent on murdering us and our loved ones. Now, recently, an AFA member in Davenport, Iowa, sent me this video, and he asked for us to break down this use of force situation, which we're going to do today. Normally, we cover only citizen uses of the Second Amendment. We are, after all, a gun rights organization that fights to defend your gun rights in Congress and in state capitals across the country. Police officers, which is involved in this video here, by nature of their job, are involved in different types of scenarios than what usually encounter us as armed citizens. But this video is so terrifying and is so dynamic, and there's so many great takeaways from this, we decided to make an exception. So I'm going to play this for you at full-time speed, then we're going to back it up and we're going to slow it down. Let me adjust my camera and we'll get this going. All right, here we go. She approaches the house for a noise complaint.
Put that down, please.
He's screaming at her. He has a hammer in his right hand. You can see him waving it. She calls for backup. And it's about to get ugly. And that's where the video cuts. We're going to play it again, as I mentioned, on slow motion. Give me just 1 second here to get that all set up. Okay, now again, as I mentioned, this woman is a police officer. I'm going to give her huge credit for how she dealt with this situation, because she was given a crap hand. Because the guy who lives here at this noise complaint, Winston Tate, was well known to the police. He was known for a large history of violent crimes against citizens and against the police. Dispatch apparently forgot to tell this officer that. And so she went there with no backup. She is a much smaller individual than what the criminal in the situation was. She was blitz attacked and still had time to draw her firearm. She shot Mr. Tate multiple times. She kept control of her firearm. She kept that fighting spirit to not give up, and she saved her life. The outcome of this is that Mr. Tate was shot once. I think they said twice. He was hauled to a hospital and released soon thereafter. He was not seriously harmed, and the officer, thank God, was also not seriously harmed. So Mr. Tate is still in jail, awaiting trial, but given the history of blue states when it comes to protecting and coddling dangerous criminals, we're sure he's going to be out on the streets sometime pretty soon. So let's play it again and derive the conclusions that we can as armed citizens. So she's there for a noise complaint. You might be walking by with your wife and kids after dinner one night, enjoying the evening with your family. Just because you're not a police officer does not mean that some crazy guy on the front porch of his home might not pop off on you. It's hard for some people to wrap their minds around how evil people are in the world. There are always people around you who are capable of extreme violence. And unless we are constantly in condition orange, you're not going to be ready when someone like this springs off of his front porch and comes to attack you. Now, right now, the officer is calling for backup, and that might make sense for her. It might not, as the case may be. But I want to be clear on this for the armed citizen. When this situation goes like this, and the guy comes off the front porch screaming, he's holding a hammer in his hand, and he begins to rush at you, do not, under any circumstances, believe that your cell phone is the tool for that job. At that point, you must draw your firearm because you are about to be in a very lethal attack. Again, some people who are conditioned to law and order and polite society, their first reaction may be to call 911. If you do that in this situation, you're going to die. So be sure you draw your firearm. Let's continue. We're at 25% speed here. And you can see even here how incredibly fast he closes the distance. I'm going to stop here in just a second. Never forget that action time is always faster than reaction time. And so if you're on that street with your wife and kids or just out there by yourself, and this guy is running downhill, he is going to close the gap on you way faster than you can ordinarily react. If you haven't seen it yet, check out the Tueller drill from the 1990s. This is a law enforcement study, a law enforcement survey, and they show that in almost every situation, a committed madman like this guy right here, Mr. Tate, can close the gap from 21 feet and in before the average police officer, let alone armed citizen, can draw and fire their firearm. So if you are anywhere in and around that number of feet, you are already inside his zone where he can get to you before you can draw your firearm. So number one, be in condition orange at all times. But number two, you must maintain that defensive depth as best you can. Now, in this case, there was little chance of doing that. He came down the hill at full speed. You can't run away from him. You can't run at him. The next best thing there is to get off the X, right? Lateral movement off to the side would have been the next best course of action. So as we practice for these situations, lateral movement drills on the range are a must do if your range will allow for it. Let's hit play again. Her body cam falls off. She's firing on him right here. You can see her brass up in the air. We do not know, again, conclusively how many shots. One report said he was hit one time. One said he was hit two times. But it's important for us to remember that, as kids, you play cops and robbers, right? And when the cop shot the robber and we went bang, well, the bad guy fell down, right? The robber fell down. That's not how it works in real life. And when somebody is this hopped up on rage or on narcotics or whatever is going through his head, one simple shot is not going to result in him dropping to the ground. So if you're in a situation like this, your job is to win the fight. The first person who shoots does not necessarily mean you're going to win the engagement. She shot multiple times. She probably should have shot more, but she was rolling around trying to keep control of her gun most of the time. So get off the X, lateral movements, and shoot until the fight is over. Let's keep going. He's bringing that hammer down here just in a second. Screaming at her, trying to kill her. She's still rolling around. She comes up. They're still fighting. He brings the hammer down. And again, we're at 25% speed, folks. But the cop gets up again miraculously. Still has the hammer. She comes up. Right there, you see her gun is still aimed at him. To be honest, I don't know how Mr. Tate walked away from this. I don't know how he did not wind up with 5 shots in the chest. I do not know how in the world he was able to walk away. The video ends right here. Again, we're not dunking on this officer at all. She had the right mindset. She got her firearm out in time. She engaged Mr. Tate. He is just lucky. He's lucky that he walked away from that situation because she certainly had the right to fire on him right now multiple times in the chest. And for some reason, she chose not to do that. So again, she's a cop. She has to engage. She has to be there. So our first goal is to avoid the fight altogether. That's a given. But once you're in that zone, once you're unable to get away from the fight, we have to remember, number one, be in condition orange at all times to be aware of these types of threats. Number two, action beats reaction. So we've got to maintain that defensive depth. Number three, lateral movement, getting off the X, right? Winning that fight. If you stand there and take that hit, you're oftentimes going to lose. And number four, again, When this happens, do not grab your cell phone, grab your firearm, and be committed mentally to winning the fight. This cop did that. She gets high marks from us. Guys, what are your thoughts? Give us your feedback in the comments section. What did she do right? What did she do wrong? What would you do if you were in that situation? We'd love to get your feedback as well. And guys, finally, join the fight for freedom today at joinafa.org. Thank you.